The words hung in the air of my own kitchen, thick and oily like smoke from a pan left too long on the fire. "You don't need all that money, Mama. You're old." My son James said it. He said it with the casual authority of someone ordering coffee, a simple statement of fact as he saw it. He leaned against the counter I had scrubbed for 40 years, the very one where I'd rolled out biscuits for him, where I'd bandaged his scraped knees, where I'd cooled the sweet potato pies he loved. His wife Susan was beside him, nodding. She was examining her nails, a little line of concentration between her brows. Her agreement was a silent, solid wall behind his words. They were a team. I didn't say anything. I just stood by the sink, my hands submerged in warm, soapy water, the familiar weight of a ceramic plate in my grasp. The water was a comfort. Its heat seeped into my old bones. I felt a strange sort of quiet settle over me. It wasn't anger. Anger is a hot, rushing thing, and this was cold. It was still. It was the stillness of a deep winter lake, frozen over so thick you could walk on it. I had heard things like this before, of course. Not in so many words. It was in the sighs when I moved too slowly. The quick, exchanged glances when I told a story they had already heard. The way they spoke about my things, my house, my life as a series of problems to be managed. A collection of assets to be liquidated in due time. But the words. The directness of them. "You're old," as if age were a disease that leached you of need, of want, of purpose. As if the years I had collected had somehow made me less of a person. A vessel slowly being emptied to make room for their own overflowing lives. I finished washing the plate. I rinsed it under the running water, the sound loud in the sudden silence of the room. I placed it carefully in the drying rack. My hands did not tremble. Not then. "The roof will need repairs soon," I said, my voice even. I was looking out the window at the big oak tree Arthur and I had planted when James was just a boy. Its leaves were turning, a blaze of orange and red against the pale blue sky. "And the furnace is making that noise again." James waved a hand, a gesture of dismissal. "That's what I mean, Mama. It's too much for you. We can sell this place, get you into a nice apartment. Something simple. We'll handle the money. Put it somewhere safe for you, for me." But the words meant for us later. I understood the language of euphemism. I had been fluent in it for years. I dried my hands on the dish towel hanging from the oven door. It was embroidered with little bluebirds, a gift from my granddaughter Maya, from a time when she was small, and her gifts were made with love instead of guilt. "I'll think about it," I said. It was the answer they expected. The answer I always gave. The answer that meant, "I will do as you say," eventually. After a respectable period of gentle resistance, they left soon after. Susan gave me a quick, papery kiss on the cheek that smelled of expensive perfume and faint impatience. James squeezed my shoulder. A gesture of ownership, not affection. I watched their car pull away, a long silver thing that gleamed in the afternoon sun. It disappeared around the corner, and the street was quiet again. I locked the door. I walked through the silent house. My house. Every object in it held a memory. The worn spot on the velvet armchair where Arthur used to sit. The faint pencil marks on the doorframe in the hall, measuring James's height, year after year. The heavy quilt on my bed, pieced together by my own mother's hands. These were not just things. They were the archive of a life. My life. And they had just declared it closed. A finished book to be placed on a shelf and forgotten. I sat in Arthur's chair. The velvet was soft and familiar against my back. The quiet of the house was different now. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of solitude. It was the ringing silence of a bell that had just been struck. The sound of his words, "You're old," echoed in it. I thought about the money they believed I no longer needed. It wasn't a fortune, not by their standards. But it was the sum of a lifetime of carefulness. It was Arthur's life insurance, modest but faithfully paid for 45 years. It was the savings from my job at the library, pennies and dimes tucked away. It was the result of turning down lights, of mending clothes instead of buying new, of making coffee at home. It was a testament to a life lived with intention and care. It was the money for the new roof, the money for the furnace, the money for a trip I had always wanted to take, to see the ocean from the other side. The money that gave me the quiet dignity of not having to ask. And they had looked at it, this monument to my life's labor, and seen nothing but an inconvenience. A surplus. Something to be handled. I sat in that chair for a long time. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the floor. The grandfather clock in the hall, another piece of my history, chimed 5. Its voice was deep and steady. It had been keeping time in this house since before I was born. It measured my life in steady, reliable ticks. The trembling started then. It began in my hands and spread through my arms, a fine, sharp tremor. It was the anger, I suppose, arriving late and cold as ice. I remembered Christmas 3 years ago. I had spent 2 days making a sweet potato pie, the real kind, from scratch, the way my mother had taught me. The crust was flaky, the filling was spiced just right. I carried it to their house, my offering. Susan had met me at the door. "Oh, Elara," she'd said, her smile tight. "That's so sweet. But the kids don't really eat old-fashioned stuff. We have a gluten-free torte from that new bakery." She put my pie on a side table in the kitchen, and there it sat, untouched, for the rest of the evening. I watched it all night. A monument to my irrelevance. I remembered James's 40th birthday. I had found a first edition of his favorite book from childhood. A worn copy with beautiful illustrations. I had it wrapped in special paper. He opened it, smiled briefly, and said, "Wow, thanks, Mom." He set it aside and spent the next 20 minutes marveling at the new set of golf clubs Susan had bought him. I saw the book weeks later on a bottom shelf in his home office, being used as a coaster for a coffee mug. Each memory was a small cut. I hadn't realized how deeply I had been bleeding. 1,000 tiny wounds that I had diligently bandaged with excuses. "He's busy. She doesn't mean it that way. They have their own lives." But there are no bandages for your old. It is not a cut. It is a cauterizing brand. It seals the wound and leaves a permanent scar. The clock chimed 6. Darkness had fallen outside the window. I had not turned on a single light. I was sitting in the dark, in a house full of ghosts and memories. And in that darkness a decision began to form. It was not a hot, reckless thing. It was cool and clear. It was a single, perfect crystal taking shape in the frozen stillness of my heart. If my life was over, as they had so kindly informed me, then its closing chapters would be written by me. And me alone. I stood up from the chair. My legs were stiff. The trembling in my hands had stopped. I walked into the kitchen and turned on the light above the sink. The single plate I had washed sat gleaming in the rack. Clean. Ready for a new day. I made myself a cup of tea. Black with a slice of lemon. I used the good china, the cup with the little gold rim that I usually saved for company. But tonight I was the only company that mattered. I sat at my kitchen table and drank my tea. I did not cry. Crying was for hurts that could be healed. This was something different. This was an amputation. A clean break. I thought about the money again. My money. The physical representation of my years on this earth. And I thought about all the children in the world who were just starting their years, with no one to bandage their knees or measure their height on a doorframe. Children who were seen as problems to be managed. Children who were invisible. A new idea began to take shape. It was bold. It was terrifying. And it felt for the first time in a very long time like my own. The next morning I woke before the sun. I did not lie in bed and listen to the house creak and groan. I got up immediately. I felt a sense of purpose that had been absent for years. I was no longer waiting. Waiting for a phone call. Waiting for a visit. Waiting for permission to live the last of my life. I went to the small desk in the spare bedroom. Arthur had built it for me. It was made of solid oak. I pulled out a piece of fresh stationery and a good pen, the one with the smooth black ink. I started to make a list. The first item was simple. Find a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers. Arthur had handled all of that. But I knew someone who did. Sister Beatrice from my church. Her late husband had been a judge. She was a woman of immense dignity and very little patience for foolishness. She would know what to do. I looked up her number in my old address book. The book was filled with names, many of them now crossed out, their owners gone on to their final reward. My own generation was fading. A quiet, steady exodus. I dialed her number. My fingers were steady on the buttons. She answered on the second ring, her voice as clear and strong as a church bell. "Beatrice," I said. "It's Elara Mayhew." "Elara, child. It's early for you to be calling. Is everything all right?" "Everything," I said, and the word felt true in my mouth. Is about to be. I didn't tell her the whole story. I didn't need to. I simply said I needed some legal advice regarding my estate, and asked if she could recommend someone discreet and competent. She gave me a name without hesitation. Mr. Robert Henderson. He's a good man, Beatrice said. Honest. Not like some of those sharks downtown. He helped me sort out everything after Charles passed. He'll treat you right. I wrote his name and number down on my list. After I hung up, I made my breakfast. Oatmeal with cinnamon and a little brown sugar. I ate it slowly at the kitchen table, looking out at the morning light filtering through the leaves of the oak tree. The world felt new. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Morning, Mom. Hope you're thinking about what we discussed. It's for the best. I looked at the message. The words swam before my eyes for a moment. For the best, who's best? I deleted it. Not replied. Deleted. The small action felt momentous. It was a digital door, and I had just closed it. My next call was to Mr. Henderson's office. A polite secretary answered. I asked for an appointment. She offered me one for the following week. Is there anything sooner? I asked, a new and unfamiliar urgency in my voice. It's a matter of some importance. She put me on hold. I listened to the faint, tinny music. Sounded like hope. She came back on the line. Mr. Henderson has had a cancellation. Could you come in tomorrow at 10? I'll be there, I said. The rest of the day was spent in preparation. I went to the bank. The real bank, the brick-and-mortar building downtown. Not the drive-through. I walked inside, the cool air smelling of clean paper and quiet money. I asked for a full statement of all my accounts. The young woman behind the counter was polite. She didn't rush me. She printed everything out and put it in a neat folder for me. As I was leaving, I saw that James's name was listed on my main checking account. I had added him years ago, after Arthur died. Just in case, Mama, he had said. In case something happens and you need help paying the bills. I had thought it was an act of love, of protection. Now I saw it for what it was. An act of control. A foot in the door of my independence. I went home and gathered my documents. The deed to the house. Arthur's will. My own, which I now realized with a jolt, left everything to James. My insurance policies. My investment statements. I put them all in a large briefcase that had belonged to Arthur. The leather was worn, and it smelled faintly of him. Felt like armor. That evening I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through the family photo albums. I wasn't looking for happy memories. I was looking for the truth. And I saw it. In picture after picture. Me in the background holding a coat or a cake. Me slightly out of focus while the camera centered on James and his family. Me with a strained smile trying to be part of a moment I was clearly only peripheral to. I was the stagehand in the play of their lives. Necessary for the production but never meant to be in the spotlight. The next morning I dressed carefully. I wore my Sunday best. A navy blue dress, my good coat, and the string of pearls Arthur had given me for our 25th anniversary. They were cool and smooth against my skin. They felt like courage. Mr. Henderson's office was in a tall, glass building. It was quiet and smelled of leather and floor polish. He was a kind-looking man, younger than I expected, with graying temples and a gentle handshake. He did not treat me like a confused old woman. He treated me like a client. He listened. I laid it all out. Not the emotional story of the pie or the book. Just the facts. My assets. My current will. My son's name on my account. My power of attorney which I had signed over to James 5 years ago, another just in case that now felt like a cage. And then I told him what James had said. He told me I don't need the money. That I'm old. Mr. Henderson's face didn't change, but I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Understanding. He steepled his fingers and leaned forward. Mrs. Mayhew, he said, his voice calm and steady. What is it you would like to do? The question was so simple. So powerful. For the first time someone was asking me what I wanted, not telling me what was best for me. First, I said, my voice clear and strong, I want to revoke the power of attorney. Immediately he nodded, already making a note. Done. Second, I want my son's name removed from my bank accounts. We can handle that this afternoon. Third, I want to change my will. He looked at me. his pen poised over the paper. And how would you like to change it? And then I told him my idea. The one that had come to me in the dark of my living room. I told him about the scholarship. I told him I wanted everything I had upon my death to go into a trust. A trust that would provide scholarships for children in the foster care system. Children who had no one. Orphans. I want to give them the chances my own family takes for granted, I said. I want to give them a start. I explained that I wanted my granddaughter Maya to be the sole exception. I would set aside a small separate fund for her education. Because she had always seen me. Even when she was small, she was the one who would sit with me on the porch and listen to my stories. She was the one who had loved the embroidered bluebirds. Mr. Henderson listened to it all without interruption. When I was finished, a long silence filled the room. I could hear the faint hum of the city traffic 10 floors below. Then he smiled. A small genuine smile. Mrs. Mayhew, he said. That is a truly admirable legacy. It would be my honor to help you create it. For the next 2 hours we worked. We drafted documents. We made phone calls. I signed my name Elara Mayhew over and over again. My signature was a little shaky, but it was firm. Each time I wrote it, I felt a layer of grime being washed away. I was reclaiming my name. I was reclaiming my life. He explained that selling the house would be the best way to fund the trust properly. The thought sent a pang through my heart. The oak tree. Arthur's chair. The pencil marks on the door frame. But then I thought of James and Susan, walking through this house after I was gone, putting price tags on my memories. And the pang disappeared. The house was just a building. My home was something I would have to build inside myself now. I'll need a place to live, I said. We can help with that too, Mr. Henderson said. My paralegal can find you a list of nice, secure apartment buildings. Or perhaps a small condo. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. The city air felt crisp and clean. I was 78 years old and I was starting over. The first call came that evening. It was James. I let it go to voicemail. Mom? It's me. Just calling to check in. I got a weird notification from the bank today. Something about a change to the account. Probably just a computer glitch, but call me back when you get this. His voice was laced with a threat of annoyance, thinly veiled as concern. A glitch. He couldn't imagine I would do such a thing. That I could do such a thing. I deleted the message. The next day, 2 more calls. 2 more voicemails. The annoyance was growing. Mom, seriously, call me. I need to know what's going on with the bank. Susan is worried. Susan was never worried. Susan was irritated when things became complicated. I deleted them. My silence was a new language. They had not listened to my words for years. Now they would have to learn to interpret my silence. And I suspected they would be very poor students. A real estate agent came to the house the next day. A brisk, professional woman named Carol. She walked through the rooms with a clipboard making notes. She was respectful. She talked about the house's good bones and charming original features. She saw its value, not its inconvenience. I found myself telling her about the oak tree, how Arthur and I had planted it from a sapling. She listened and she smiled. A new family will love that, she said. A new family with children who will want to climb it. The thought brought me a surprising amount of peace. The house deserved new life. It deserved laughter. The calls from James became more frequent, more frantic. He started leaving messages for the first time in years. No more texts. Mom, I got a letter from some lawyer. Henderson. It says your power of attorney has been revoked. Is someone taking advantage of you? Are you okay? You need to call me. This is serious. He thought I was a victim. A senile old woman being manipulated. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. He who had been taking advantage of my love and my compliance for decades was now worried about predators. He was a man staring into a mirror and seeing a stranger. I kept deleting the messages. Each one I erased felt like pulling a weed from the garden of my soul. The soil was finally getting clean. One afternoon my granddaughter Maya called. I had been dreading her call, afraid that she was a part of their chorus. But I answered. Her voice was different, quiet, hesitant. Grandma? It's Maya. I know, dear. He's losing his mind. He says you won't answer his calls. He's talking about lawyers and welfare checks. I was silent for a moment. And what do you think, Maya? There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her take a breath. I think you must have a good reason. Tears pricked my eyes. The first tears I had shed through this whole ordeal. They were tears of gratitude. To be seen. To be trusted.
Ido, baby, he whispered.
I do. Can I come see you? She asked. Just me. I won't tell them. I would like that very much, I said. She came over that Saturday. She brought me a small pot of African violets. They're purple flowers like little velvet jewels. She didn't ask me 100 questions. She just sat with me in the living room, among the boxes that were beginning to pile up. You're moving? She asked softly. I am, I said. To a smaller place. This house is too much for one person. I decided to tell her. I told her everything. The words James had said. The pie. The book. The slow, steady erosion of my spirit. I told her about Mr. Henderson and the will and the scholarship. She listened, her eyes wide. When I was finished, she looked down at her hands in her lap. A single tear rolled down her cheek and splashed onto her jeans. I'm so sorry, Grandma, she said, her voice thick. I saw it. I saw how they treated you. But I never did anything. I would laugh at Mom's little jokes about you. I didn't know what else to do. Her confession was a gift. It was the truth. It was the validation I didn't even know I needed. You were a child, Maya, I told her, reaching out to take her hand. And now you're not. That's all that matters. She helped me pack some books. We wrapped old china in newspaper. We worked in a comfortable silence, the quiet bond between us being rebuilt, stronger than before. She was my ally, my witness. The house sold quickly, much faster than I expected. The family who bought it had 2 small children. I watched them from the window as they walked the property with Carol. The little boy ran straight for the oak tree. The inevitable confrontation happened a week before the closing date. I was on my porch watering my gardenias when James's silver car screeched to a halt at the curb. He got out, followed by Susan. Their faces were thunderous. They marched up my walkway. I did not retreat into the house. I stood my ground, watering can in hand. I felt as rooted as the old oak. What is this, Mama? James demanded, waving a piece of paper. It was the sale notice. You're selling the house? Without even talking to us. This is my house, James, I said calmly. My name is on the deed. Alone? We're your family. Susan chimed in, her voice shrill. You're supposed to consult us. We've been worried sick. We thought you were having some kind of episode. Worried. That word again. It meant nothing. It was a weapon they used to assert their control. I have never been more lucid in my life, I said, looking from her face to my son's. I am not having an episode. I am making decisions. James's face crumpled. It was the face of a spoiled child whose favorite toy has just been taken away. But the money from the house. We were counting on that. For your care. For the apartment. I have arranged for my own care, I said. And for my own apartment. The money is being put to good use. What good use? He sputtered. What could be more important than your own family? I set the watering can down on the porch railing. I looked my son in the eye. I saw the boy I had raised and the man he had become. And I felt a great aching sadness for the distance between the two. You told me I don't need the money, James, I said, my voice quiet but carrying in the still afternoon air. You told me I'm old. I decided to believe you. The color drained from his face. For the first time, I think he truly heard his own words reflected back at him. He had no reply. He just stared at me, his mouth slightly open. Susan, however, was not speechless. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're doing this to punish us. It's cruel and manipulative. No, Susan, I said, turning my calm gaze to her. This is not punishment. This is a consequence. You have both made it very clear for a very long time that my life, as I live it, is an inconvenience to you. I have simply decided to remove the inconvenience. I picked up my watering can. Now, if you'll excuse me, my gardenias are thirsty. I turned my back on them and tended to my flowers. I could feel their stunned silence behind me. After a long moment, I heard the car doors slam, and the engine roar to life. They were gone. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel victorious. I felt a profound sense of peace. The kind of quiet that comes after a long and terrible storm has finally passed. My new apartment was small, but it was filled with light. It was on the third floor of a clean, quiet building for seniors. It had a small balcony where I could put my gardenias. I brought only the things that mattered. Arthur's chair, the quilt my mother made, my books, the good china, the photo of Maya. The rest I let go. The house, the furniture, the lifetime of accumulated things. It was all just stuff. I felt clean, unburdened. Mr. Henderson helped me finalize the trust. We called it the Arthur and Elara Mayhew Foundation. I liked the sound of our names together again. He told me the first scholarships would be awarded next fall. I imagined a young person, a child who had been told they were a problem, opening a letter that told them someone believed in them, someone they had never even met. That, I thought, was a legacy. Not a house full of furniture. Not a bank account with a son's name on it. But a chance. A beginning funded by my end. I settled into a new rhythm. I woke with the sun. I drank my tea on the balcony. I joined a book club at the local library. I volunteered to read to children on Wednesdays. Their small faces, so full of trust and wonder, were a balm to my soul. I saw Maya every Sunday. We would have lunch. Sometimes we would just sit and read in companionable silence. She was studying social work. She told me she wanted to work with kids in the system. She told me I was her inspiration. One day a letter arrived. The envelope was addressed in James's familiar, messy script. I recognized the weak penmanship of a disappointing son. I let it sit on my small kitchen counter for 3 days. I was not afraid of it. I was simply deciding if I wanted to let it into my new quiet world. On the 4th day I opened it. It was 2 pages long. It was not filled with excuses or blame. It was just an apology. For the words in the kitchen. For the pie. For the book. For years of not seeing. He wrote that he didn't understand, not really, but that he was beginning to. He wrote that he missed his mother. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask me to change anything. He just asked if someday he could call me. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I did not answer it right away. Forgiveness, I was learning, was not a switch you could flip. It was a slow dawn. And I was in no hurry. The sun was rising on my own terms now. My life is quiet. It is small. It is my own. I have my books, my flowers, my memories. I have the love of a granddaughter who sees me. I have the knowledge that my life's work, my careful savings, will not be spent on golf clubs or gluten-free torts, but on futures. On possibilities. Some might call my life lonely. They would be wrong. I have shed the loneliness of being invisible in a crowded room. I have found the peaceful solitude of being seen, truly and completely by myself. The clock on my mantel, a small, elegant thing I bought for myself, ticks steadily. It is not counting down the end. It is measuring the beginning. Every tick is a moment of my own choosing. Every hour is a gift I give to myself. I am old. And I have never, in all my 78 years, felt so full of life. I don't know if James will ever fully comprehend the chasm that opened in my kitchen that day. People like him, people who move through the world with such casual entitlement, rarely do. They see boundaries as attacks, consequences as punishments. They cannot grasp that sometimes, a person simply chooses to stop lighting themselves on fire to keep others warm. My new apartment complex has a community garden. I took a small plot. I planted tomatoes and basil, and a row of collard greens the way my father taught me. My hands in the dark, rich soil feel right. It is honest work. You give the earth care and it gives you sustenance. There are no hidden clauses, no unspoken expectations. Sister Beatrice comes for tea on Tuesdays. We sit on my balcony, and she tells me the church gossip, her eyes twinkling. She never once said, "I told you so." She just patted my hand when I told her the foundation was finalized and said, "Arthur would be so proud, Elara." So very proud. Her validation is like a warm blanket. It is the comfort of being understood by your peers, by someone who has walked a similar path and knows the weight of the stones you carry. We are from a generation of women who were taught to endure, to smooth things over, to be the peacemakers in our own homes, even when we had no peace. To see one of us finally lay down that burden is a quiet victory for us all. I started a journal. It is not for anyone else to read. It is for me. I write down the small moments of my day. The taste of a perfectly ripe tomato from my garden. The sound of children laughing in the park across the street. The way the evening sun slants across my living room floor. Last night I wrote, "Today I bought a single perfect peach." I ate it over the sink, the juice dripping down my chin, and I did not worry about the mess. It was my peach. It was my sink. It was my mess. It seems like such a small thing, but it felt like the pinnacle of freedom. For so long, every action was predicated on the comfort and convenience of others. My messes were to be contained. My needs were to be minimized. My very presence was to be curated so as not to impose. To eat a peach with joyful abandon was an act of rebellion. Sometimes I think about the money, not with anxiety but with a sense of wonder. For my entire adult life it was a tool for security, a buffer against disaster. It was for the family, a safety net woven with sacrifice. Now it is a tool for creation. It is not a net but a set of wings. It will lift children up. It will allow them to soar to heights their circumstances would have otherwise denied them. The thought fills me with a profound sense of purpose that is utterly disconnected from my role as a mother or a wife. This purpose is mine alone. It is the legacy of Elara. Not Elara the wife or Elara the mother. Just Elara. Maya called me last week, her voice buzzing with excitement. She had declared her major, and had been accepted into a competitive internship program that works directly with foster families. "I talked about you in my application essay, Grandma," she said. "I wrote about what it means to create a legacy of care instead of just inheriting one of wealth." I had to sit down. My little bluebird. She had taken my quiet act of self-preservation and was turning it into her life's mission. The ripple effect. You throw a stone in a pond not knowing how far the rings will travel. There are hard days. Days when a smell or a song will trigger a memory of James as a little boy, his hand tucked so trustingly in mine. The ghost of that love is still there. It aches sometimes like a phantom limb. I have to remind myself that I am not mourning the man he is, but the boy he was and the mother I used to be. That woman is gone. She had to be for me to survive. I am building a new kind of family now. A family of choice. Beatrice is my sister. Maya is my daughter in a way she never was before. The young librarian who saves me the new historical fiction novels is my friend. The quiet gentleman down the hall who helps me with my groceries is my neighbor. It is a life pieced together, like my mother's quilt. Made of different scraps, different colors, different textures, but when stitched together with intention and respect, it creates something warm and strong and beautiful. Something that can keep out the cold. I received a package from Mr. Henderson a few weeks ago. It was a portfolio for the foundation. Inside were the official documents, the seal of the state, the mission statement we had drafted. He had also included a small bound book. For the stories, he had written in a note. I thought the recipients someday might like to know about the woman who gave them their chance. I have started writing in it. I am not writing about the pain. I am not writing about the neglect. I am writing about Arthur, and how he taught me to dance in the kitchen. I am writing about my mother, and the smell of yeast rolls baking on a Saturday morning. I am writing about the day I learned to read, and how the world opened up like a flower. I am filling the book with the life they tried to tell me was over. I am giving those children not just my money but my history. A history of love and resilience and quiet strength. A history they can borrow until they are old enough to have built their own. I am old. That is a fact. But my son was wrong about what it means. It does not mean I am finished. It does not mean I am without need. It means I have less time for foolishness. It means my patience for disrespect has worn thin. It means I have finally learned that my own peace is not a luxury, but a necessity. I have everything I need. A safe place to lay my head. Good food to eat. A mind that is still sharp. A heart that, though scarred, is still capable of giving and receiving love on its own terms. And a purpose that will outlive me. The letter from James is still in the drawer. I think perhaps I will answer it soon. I will not invite him here. Not yet. But I might suggest we meet for a cup of coffee. On neutral ground. A public place. Where I can leave whenever I choose. The relationship we had is over. It cannot be rebuilt. But perhaps if he is willing to do the work, we can build something new. Something smaller and more honest. Something where I am not a resource but a person. And if he is not willing, that is all right too. I will drink my coffee, and I will go home to my quiet, sunlit apartment, and I will be whole. My wholeness no longer depends on him. It no longer depends on anyone but me. That is the most precious thing I have reclaimed. More valuable than any house or any bank account. It is the simple, unshakable knowledge of my own worth. And that is a treasure no one can ever take from me again.